Got him.
Hey, this is Ready Row USA. We are all here in our individual separated cubicles, but we are connected by the miracle of modern technology to our special guest today, Jen Huffman, and her mom, Judy Willman, who is trying to get her microphone working. But we ran into them or met up with them at the head of the Charles last year, and Jen is the granddaughter, and Judy is the daughter of the legendary Boys in the Boat crew member Joe Rantz. And he's probably the most well known, at least it's kind of a household name in rowing circles. But hi, Jen, and thank you for being
Hi.
here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Um, Let me just ask Judy. Judy, are you want to?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you, but why don't you?
Okay.
We'll check on you in a little bit. You don't seem to have video there, but
Well, it's okay. I guess I'm coming in on my phone.
oh yeah,
Yep,
good,
you are.
good, good,
There
good.
you are.
Welcome.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Well done. Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to touch anything.
Okay. Like I was saying in the green room, this adds authenticity to our broadcast. We're normally like seamless, smooth professional podcasters. But anyway, we are so glad to have you and to be able to provide some insight into what made your father tick and your grandfather Jen. And I know you have some projects going on that we'll be talking about. We'll share a little bit about later. But first, we are going to go to our little wind up here. I'm the producer, Charlotte Pierce, and our exalted assistant producer is. I'm going to mute you, Judy, so because you're echoing. Is Shannon Borum. I produced this episode, and Kimberly Reynolds is often with us. She does our news section, and she will probably be back with us next week, I'm hoping. We are part of the Rowing Chat Network. We have several podcasts across the network, including Faster Masters. Ready Row USA is this one. We have Strengths Coach Roundtable, and Rowing Chat executive producer is Rebecca Caro, who does many interesting interviews with rowing legends and luminaries and Olympic rowers and people with great insight. I think last week she did a thing on rigging with Mike Davenport. And we also have a new podcast on the network called The Candid Cox with Whitney Powell. And she will be doing that on a regular basis too. So we have a great appreciation for our fabulous sponsors. They make sure we can keep the lights on and the internet going and little subscriptions and all that stuff that we need to do. So thank you for our sponsors, Perigal Rowing Camps and Rowing Tales. This is a book series, and you can find all the links and deals and discounts at rowing.chat/sponsors. So Perigal Rowing Camps and Rowing Tales book series, which you might have more use of in the immediate future because a lot of us are at home reading. Yeah, so today we are honoring Joe Rantz, and we are highlighting how Judy and Jen, his descendants, are keeping his spirit and message alive and helping us understand what makes someone like that tick. And I dare say that some of the qualities of Joe Rantz have rubbed off on you guys, you ladies. But in fact, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have told me so. So, Judy, are you with us?
I hope so.
Can you tell us which one is Joe in that picture on the left? For those of you who are watching, we have some slides up.
Yeah, my dad is second from the left.
Okay. With the black shorts.
Oh, well, they kind of all
One
have
of the many with black shorts. Yeah.
with the
The one
blonde.
with the one with the black shoes on.
Oh, yeah.
the black
Yeah.
shoes.
There you go.
Yeah, so they didn't have unis in those days, huh?
No.
Well, they
Except for the
did, but they weren't very comfortable looking. Let's just put it that way. I don't think they
Unis
would wear
are,
those unless they had to.
yeah, those are a topic of great of amusement sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are, so can you tell us a little bit about what's going on now? Some of the projects that you have, there's a session you did last year and then this current documentary, right? I don't know who Jennifer or Judy?
The documentary was me. And that was for North Cascades Crew. It's a documentary that Dunn Lumber did. They donated a number of materials, a fair amount of the materials for the boathouse on Lake Stevens, for the Joe Rantz boathouse. And that was, Dunn Lumber has a very vested interest in rowing. One of the Dunn, his great uncle or great grandfather or something, he was on crew back in the 20s. And so there was a lot of interest there when he found out that they had footage from 36, and it was footage of the crew rowing past the Dunn Lumber sign in Ballard. So they were very excited about that and wanted to do something bigger with that. So they did the documentary.
And Shannon, I was going to bring you in. If you have any questions, please pipe up.
I'm just sitting and listening. This is
sitting and enjoying it. Yes.
Yet another episode of Charlotte Knows the Coolest People.
Well,
Every week
actually,
I'm like, dang, Charlotte just knows everybody.
Well, I wormed my way into things, but Rebecca actually sent me the reference to this, and we set up the interview when they were at the head of the Charles. So why don't we just run a little bit of that, and then we can talk more about the projects that you have going on. Let me just change my my screen share here. Somebody talk while I'm doing that. Thank you.
Well, I was going to say, Jen, did you have an option of not rowing while you were growing up?
I didn't actually start rowing until I was a grown-up. So I didn't find rowing until I was 38 years old. I actually grew up doing gymnastics and dance and coaching gymnastics and dance. So rowing was an after-the-fact kind of thing that I retired, we'll put that in air quotes, from coaching for a few years. And when I did that, that's when I found rowing. And it was kind of one of those things. My son got asked to row on a junior crew. And he was reticent about the idea of doing that. So I went down there with him and ended up rowing with some moms on a learn to row thing, and decided that, wow, this was pretty awesome, and that I wanted to do it. So yeah, and that was 11 years ago now.
Yeah, knowing your family history, that's got to be a really powerful moment to be like, oh, I really like this sport.
Yeah, it was. It was. The sad thing was that, by the time I really got into it, Grandpa had passed away, so I couldn't talk to him about it and say, hey, Grandpa, this stuff's happening and it's really cool, and I want to hear more about what it was like when you rode in the 30s, and ask him questions that you wouldn't know to ask somebody unless you had been a rower. So I didn't get the opportunity to ask those questions, and that still it bums me out.
Right. Now, Judy, did you grow up rowing with your dad?
Oh, no.
I remember that.
Sports were my passion. I did take a miniature sort of learn to row class at point in time when
'Cause of
Dan
me.
and I were working on the book. And yeah, well, it was because Jennifer was kind of pushing me. She had both her kids, Josh and Dana, were rowing at the time. And she was kind of pushing me that I could go out in a 3-generational quad. So
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So we did. She took a learn to row
Uh,
class. We learned to row well enough for, I'm just going to talk since she's kind of cutting
I
out.
would.
I'm gonna mute for a second.
Okay. We taught her how to row. My coach did. And then we went down to the Olympic Peninsula, and John Hallberg, who rowed in the 50s, he was the, like, had started a club on the Olympic Peninsula, and so they had open water boats. So we went out in an open water quad, and he coxed us, and it was really neat to row out on the Olympic Peninsula with the seals and everything. And yeah, so that was our
Very
big
cool.
row. Yeah.
Awesome. Charlotte,
So it was a
are
lot of
you
fun.
queued up and ready for the video?
Yeah, I'm going to see how well it goes. I think there's a lot of traffic on the internet right now. And
Right.
sometimes these things, get kind of bugged.
All right. Well, I'm gonna unmute your screen, and if you'll go ahead and hit play, we can roll that.
Okay, did you hear any of that?
Yeah, we heard you.
No, did you hear the... Just a
I
second.
think we're having.
Yeah, just a minute.
There it is.
Okay, so we're going to just play that. Jen and Judy Willman, two relatives of a very famous rower. Can you hear that? Mm-hmm. On this? Yeah, okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your ancestor? Or your husband, or your father, I'm sorry?
Well, my dad was Joe Rantz, the number 7 man on the 1936 crew that was featured in The Boys in the Boat, the book. And I had a lot to do with that book. I spent about 6 years working with the author, doing research and editing and that kind of thing. Marketing, digging out relatives, the sorting stuff. Anyway, yes, and
Going into your attic for Dusty.
well, actually, it was going into his attic for dusty boxes and stuff, and prodding relatives of the other guys to look around for boxes of stuff that they might have on their dad.
I think what we'll do is clean up the audio and post that separately. But I just loved talking to you both, at the head of the Charles. And are we back on?
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah, so it was just a real privilege and a wonderful setting to be. It was a great day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Judy, are you back with us? Yay.
We're back somehow. I'm not sure what's going on with the technology over there.
Yeah, we're having technology issues. I can speak for her like a ventriloquist.
Okay.
It'll work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us sort of about your involvement in the book, because your grandfather plays a pretty central role in the book that we've all read.
Right. So it's kind of an interesting backstory how the book came about. So when Grandpa was moving out of his house, he was going to move in with my mom. He'd gotten to the point where he just really couldn't care for himself anymore. And so we were cleaning out the attic, and we found a box of just all kinds of stuff from his rowing years. So there were pictures and memorabilia, the jerseys that he had that are on display at the UW now, a lot of that sort of stuff that was just sitting in a box, and it had been damaged. There was some water damage to a lot of it from a leak in the attic or whatever. And so I was kind of looking through that stuff, and at the time I was really into scrapbooking for my kids. I'd been doing, a lot of their, just as they're growing up. And I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, we totally have to preserve this stuff, and we have to make sure that it's available for next generation to look at and tell Grandpa's story. So Grandpa was still alive at that point, obviously. So we went through and picked the things out of that chest that were salvageable, and I talked to him a fair amount. We went through and kind of figured out the story of, what we wanted to tell in the scrapbook. We went to the UW and we pulled a bunch of articles from the archives at the U, and I took pictures of them and put them in this scrapbook that I was working on. And so by the time we got done, I had this scrapbook that was, about this thick, and just a handful, but it really told the story of Grandpa's rowing years at the U pretty well. So I showed it to my mom, and she was super excited about it, when she saw the end product of this, and was like, oh my gosh, you really could make a story out of this, right? Mm-hmm. So she had taken it around and shown it to a bunch of her friends and stuff, and they're like, oh my gosh, that would just make the best book, and so she was kind of excited about that concept and thought that she might do something herself, because she's actually a writer. And so she had kind of played around with some stuff, and had gotten some queries from people around the country asking Grandpa to give information on himself, history teachers, that kind of stuff. And so she would send, little synopses back to them kind of about his rowing years and all of that. So it got to the point where she was at a homeowners association meeting one evening, and Dan was there because they live in the same neighborhood, and he had brought his first book with him that had just been published, and said, hey, you guys, you should read my book, and if you buy a copy, I'll sign it for you and everything. So she reads this book, and it was about the firestorm in Hinckley, Minnesota in 1896, and it was an amazing book. I mean, you guys know now the way that Dan writes. He's just an incredible storyteller, mm-hmm. and he pulls you right into it. So my mom's reading this book, and she's thinking, oh my gosh, this guy could totally tell Grandpa's story, right? It's like I thinking about ways to make this happen, and it's just such a big, important story that having it would be amazing, right? So he sorry.
Go ahead.
She ended up giving the book to my grandpa, because she wanted to be able to say, to have Grandpa read this book and be able to say, yes, this is the kind of person that I would like to write this story, right? So she's reading the book to my grandpa, and my grandpa's like, I know the person in that story. I know Angus Hay. I played with him in a band in Squim when I was in high school. Yeah. My mom's like, I don't know that could have happened, because this was in the 1890s and you were born until 1914. And he's like, no, I know that name. And so she asked Dan about it. She said, so Dan, what happened to Angus Hay's family once the firestorm was over? And he's like, well, I think they moved out to the Olympic Peninsula. So it turns out that this character that was in Dan's book, actually the son, Angus Hay Jr., was in a jazz band with my grandpa in high school. So it's like, I mean, what are the chances of that, right?
Yeah. Right.
So then my mom invites Dan over, and she's like, my father would really like to talk to you about this connection that they have with this book. And then she had also kind of told him ahead of time, hey, you need to, listen to ask my dad about this rowing story that he has. I mean, she kind of gave him a background and shown him the scrapbook and everything. And so that's how the prologue to the book starts, is with him going over there to talk about that book, and then getting into Grandpa's story. So that's how the book came about, was just a random chain of events that, who could have planned it? It's pretty amazing. Right. And we're very grateful.
So Jen, is this Us Against the World? Is that a short documentary? I mean, what that is that's a documentary that Dunn Lumber did that I narrated for them
that tells Grandpa's story, and then a little bit about my rowing at the end.
And is that a trailer, or is that the whole thing, that 11-minute?
If you're on www.usagainsttheworld.org, that's the whole thing.
And how long is it then?
It's 11 minutes long.
Yeah, that's what the one on YouTube is the same.
Yes.
So we will have those links, that and the other one of the Boys in the Boat. This one.
Yep.
We'll have
that's mom's story.
Yeah. So those will probably be a little better. More legible.
Be easier to watch. Yes. Yeah. For sure.
So we will definitely have them on. What else is going on? Sorry.
Well, I want to ask just a kind of an annoying question, I think. So my grandfather was in World War II, slightly older, I think, than yours. So, and I grew up with, oh my gosh, it's just one of Grandpa's stories. Let me zone out. What was it like growing up knowing that, or did you know that your grandpa was an Olympian? And I mean, I just can't imagine what it was like growing up.
That's a really interesting question. And the answer is going to probably surprise you a little bit. So he didn't really talk about it at all when we were growing up, which for that generation is very common. I mean, they really didn't talk about their pasts all that much. It's kind of like you do what you have to do and you make it through. And so I honestly knew very, very little about his story, period, until the book was written. I knew that I had like my great aunts and uncles, his half siblings that they talk about in the book, Harry and Rosie and Polly. And I knew that they were related to me, but I didn't really know how. And it, they had reunions every so often, most of which I don't remember because I was really kind of young when they had the majority of them. But I do remember their 50th reunion in 1986. It was the last time that they actually took the Husky Clipper out for a row. So they brought it down. We all went to the shell house. They brought it down on like these roller tractor things so they didn't have to carry the boat. And they went to put it in the water. And, I was 16 at the time, and, Grandpa would have been in his 70s. And I remember they put the boat in the water, and I was just thinking, oh my God, these guys are so old. I'm not even sure, they're going to hurt themselves. I'm not even sure what they're going to do. And then, as I get into rowing and I'm rowing with masters, it's like, I row with some 70-year-olds. So the thought of that now is just like, not a big deal. But boy, at the time when I was 16, they just seemed really old. But yeah, they got in the boat and went out and took kind of their final send-off row, which was pretty amazing. There was something else I was going to say along those lines, and now I'm trying to remember what it was in terms of learning about his history. So my mom, part of what she did, because she knew that the stories were important and that Grandpa's history is important, is when Grandpa moved in with her, she basically just kind of started following him around with a pencil and paper. And anytime there was something that was happening that he had a recollection of something or remembrance of something where, he remembered something about his childhood, she'd get her pencil and paper and she'd be like, okay, tell me about that, and try and ask questions about it to learn as much as she could, as much history as she could get, just by his random remembrances. And so when Dan started writing the book, she had about 5 years worth of that she could go through and give him information. And so as he was writing the book, he would give the chapters to my mom, and she would look them over and, make suggestions, say, that doesn't really sound like something that Grandpa would say, or, might want to say that a little different, or whatever it was. But there was a lot of the stuff of his childhood where she had given him information, remembrances of things that had happened. So like he remembered at the Golden Ruby mine, clearing the plates for the men who were working, and he remembered chopping the firewood for the wood stove for the teacher and things like that. But he didn't specifically say, my parents kicked me out of the house, right? So as Dan's writing this chapter and it comes back to my mom, and my mom's looking at it, and she's like, how did I not even realize that this was really what the situation was? It's like, he never said it, and you wouldn't think about it that way. But yeah, everything that he was saying, she got really mad at me, and then I'm cooking, or I'm cleaning up for people, and I'm tending the fire here, and I'm kind of living in the schoolhouse, and it all just came together. So having someone on the outside look at all those remembrances and see them from a viewpoint that was not my mom's viewpoint was powerful. So there's a lot of things that we learned through his research and just through him putting a lot of things together, that it was very powerful. And I knew very little about my grandpa until all of this came out. So it was, yeah.
I was going to ask you a question, but first I want to remind people that we're Ready Row USA rowing podcast, and we're here with Judy Willman and Jen Huffman, the descendants of the legendary Joe Rantz of Boys in the Boat. And Jen, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about your grandfather captivates people so much? What qualities did he have that just resonate with just everybody, really?
So I think that he's got a lot of qualities that people either wish that they had or aspire to have. That whole generation, I think that there's a lot about that generation that people are attracted to in a way, in the sense that, it's kind of the pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of, you're going through the depression and you've been abandoned, and what are you going to do at that point? You're put in a situation where you have to make decisions about what you're going to do with your life, and whether you're going to kind of be a survivor, or whether you're just going to lay down and die, So he chose to be a survivor and to make the best of the situation that he had. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But that he also, not only did he make the best of the situation that he had, but he thrived in it. So I think that the whole concept of the story, where it's like, you're on your own and you have to learn to live on your own, and but in order to fit in with the team and be a part of the boat and be successful, you have to learn this other skill. You have to learn to trust other people at the same time is very compelling. And I think that people saw it as, I'm in this situation right now where I feel like I'm underwater, or I'm, things aren't going my way, but look at what he did. Look at what he did with his life,
I think that's just so resonant with what's going on now with our crisis, health crisis. It's, you see people either kind of caving or freezing or engaging and helping each other. And it's just, there's such a incredible lesson there, I think.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I'm going to go read the book again.
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
We're
like, got lots of time, right?
I need some inspiration.
Yeah.
So, so there's a movie coming out too. I think the production might be on hold, but
yes, it is. It is. So Lantern Entertainment bought a fair number of Weinstein's projects when they auctioned things off as they went into bankruptcy. So they were actually out in Seattle at the Shell House last, I believe it was August. We had a big get together. There were a lot of family members of different members of the crew there, and we had a big kind of party at the Shell House, which was kind of cool because they're trying to renovate it. They're doing a whole next 100 years kind of campaign to get the boathouse transformed into a center that everyone can use. renovate it. So we were all there. The lantern people were there, and we're talking to people. So they were, looking at, can we use the cut? Do we want to film it here? Do we want to film it somewhere else? They talked to Mike Callahan and Yaz Farouk about, possibilities with that. I don't know how much, but they definitely did. Yeah. So I know that they are partnering with MGM now to make that their first production, and that George Clooney is set to be the producer. So we're really excited that it looks like things are really moving forward on that.
Will you have some kind of a role in that, or advisory?
No. No.
Oh,
no,
come on! I want to come with you to backstage.
Yeah, I know. I'm just waiting for the red carpet walk.
Yeah.
That's all I care about, right?
I'll start getting my dress ready now.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly it.
So
unfortunately, when the book was sold, the rights to the movie were sold at the same time.
Sure.
So Dan doesn't have any say at all unless they want to pull him in. He's just kind of hearing about it, maybe a little bit ahead of everybody else, but no.
I mean, it's about time they did a movie about that.
Oh, yeah.
They've done the documentaries and stuff, but
and honestly, that documentary, we would be, if there's nothing except the American Experience documentary that ends up coming out, at least that was published. It's like, that's a really great,
it's fantastic,
really great documentary. And it was really neat being part of the back end of that, because the historical producer actually came out to my mom's house when they were in the process of doing all of the work on that documentary, and she looked at a whole bunch of my mom's stuff, and my mom took her around to the U and all of that. And, we were talking about how neat it would be to get hold of the the radio footage of the race, the Olympic race, because nobody had it or nobody had heard it, but we knew it was there. I mean, obviously there's radio footage of that race. And, she looked straight at me and my mom and she said, "We are going to find things that you don't even know existed, because that's our job."
Yay,
and
Mom.
we're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing." And so, she found some amazing footage, and being able to watch that for the first time and see some of that footage and hear the actual Olympic footage, the radio footage,
it gives you goosebumps.
Just amazing.
Judy, do we have, we're going to have to wind up soon, but Judy, do we have you, do you want a last
gasp? Can you hear?
Final word? Did Jen say anything wrong?
Well, a lot of what she said I didn't really hear because my other phone was stuttering.
Yeah, so, that'll happen.
But it sounded like she pretty well went through the story.
She can be your PR person.
She makes a very good PR person.
I'm getting good at that now.
Yeah.
She's certainly aware of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we are thinking about you out there in the West Coast and everywhere, and all the rowing clubs out there that are trying to make sense. We had a community rowing had a online meeting, a scholars meeting yesterday and last night, and it was so nice to see everyone. And it's a strong community, so I think we're going to be okay. We're going to take care of each other, and we're going to help each other out of the aftermath. So
we were
one of the things
go ahead.
One of the things I don't think Jennifer mentioned, although I couldn't tell, was that one of the side shoots of this whole thing was that the Squim Sunrise Rotary got really inspired. Did you mention this,
No.
Jennifer? Okay. Got really inspired with Dad's story. Of course, he came out of Scrim. And they've had auctions, and they've had fundraisers, and they are creating a Joe Rantz homeless youth fund.
Oh my gosh.
They have scholarships set aside. They have been able to acquire a house that they set up counseling, and they can have, there's some beds in it where they can have temporary housing for it's for kids who are homeless, but they want to finish high school.
Well, that sounds like something he would highly approve of.
Yes, it is so precisely.
Yes, that's his experience.
It's just, and of all the stuff that's happened, I think that he would have been the most pleased with that.
Oh, it's just, it gets better and better, this story. And thank you for sharing it. I just really appreciate you being on. And please keep us posted about this, your projects, and we'll share the links that you've provided on our show notes. Rowing.chat is where you can find the archives. And let's go through the little closing blurbs that we have. And you can connect with Ready Row USA, listen for the episode hashtag, which is coming up here. And guess what it is? Boys
Hashtag
in the boat.
Exactly. We can't not do that one.
No, it's so easy to remember. Just put it on social media, and we have some things. We have rowing gadgets, gear, and services that we award on a monthly basis. So we'll lurk around the internet and find where you've posted it, and we'll surprise you with a little gift, and it will be a contactless transfer. Got all these words that all these phrases that we're getting to know.
I am super curious what the word of the year is going to be. I have money on social distancing.
I don't like social distancing. I like physical distancing and social connection, right? Can I start a movement to change it to physical?
Sure.
Just
anyway,
hashtag it, Charlotte.
I will.
Yeah, there you go.
So we got things that we're doing at home. We're doing this, the video conferencing. We're doing planking, probably 20-30 minutes of planking every day, and erging and all that good stuff. We have a club news forum, and I don't know what it's going to take to get people to use it, but we would love to share what your club is doing. I think, Ted...
We want to do a whole episode at the end of April, so please.
Yeah, we need clubs. Because I told Ted Benford at a community rowing session last night about it, and he said, yeah, I'll be on. They're doing of course, there are a lot of resources at, say, large club, but they're doing some amazing stuff with online offerings and just connecting people and renting out ergs and things like that. So there are things you can do, and they also have a lot of expertise about getting unemployment benefits and retaining staff or furloughing. There's a lot of decisions that clubs have to make in this situation. So please use our forum or just contact us through the website rowing.chat, and we will get you on. We always need more gadgets and gear because, we live for our gadgets. And especially,
and for the gear, like you guys were talking about unis earlier today, and I thought, man, my newest uni is super comfortable. Like I didn't even want to take it off.
I know. Let's I always wanted to have pajamas.
You've heard the correct number of unis is n+1, where n is the number of unis you own right now.
Don't tell my husband. I just ordered another one this week. So
we gotta get that Pride uni that your class designed.
Yeah.
That's the one that I ordered. So I'm very I had some students.
I have not ordered a Pride uni yet, but yes, I saw
those.
So
the J
lovely.
Ordered the one that my kids designed. My kids designed it.
Sweet. That's
Let's
awesome.
put that in the show notes, Shannon. Let's put that in the show notes, because we really have to. That's a brilliant design.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okie dokie. And we are, again, appreciative to our sponsors, rowing.chat/sponsors, Pre-Go Rowing Camps, and the Rowing Tales series. That's the wrong... Never mind. It's the episode hashtag is RRUSA Boys in the Boat.
Yes.
My company is Pierce Press. I am always willing to and inviting people to send manuscript book project ideas, especially for alternative education and coaching and innovative approaches to rowing, coaching, and learning. Shannon, This is your
I'm a
neck of the
teacher
woods.
and a coach who's stuck at home for the foreseeable future. But if anyone is south of Atlanta, come visit us. We'd love to have guest rowers.
Yeah. And it's all year round pretty much, right?
When there's not a pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We're all on pause right now.
Right.
Upcoming episodes, we really want to hear from clubs. So, if you've tuned in to hear about Joe Rantz, we want to hear from you as well.
Right.
Club News Spotlights, we always have more gadgets, gear, and gifts. We're going to do some Olympic stuff now that we have a new date for the Olympics in 2021, which kind of messes with my head because it's got to be an even number, and I just don't know what to do now.
Right.
It's like 2021. No, it can't be. Pride Month is coming up. We're going to do some special interviews and coverage of that, and we'll be back next week or even probably sooner. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in.
And thank you guys so much for joining us. It was so nice to chat with you today.
It's great. Anytime. You just invite yourselves. Do a home invasion.